30th September 2019 is shown below. So you're given sales revenue. So the first thing when you have your corporate tax question, alright, go through the profit and loss account. So you're given the sales revenue, cost of sales, and there's no note to those items. And then you have gross profit from the income, rental, interest, and other income, and you will have notes later on this item. So when you have notes here, means that you are going to go very detailed, alright, because the information is provided in the notes. So for you to make a decision whether you have to do adjustment or there is no adjustment. Rental, interest, and other income, and then for expenses you have staff costs, bank charges, entertainment, depreciation. So even though here ada mana I punya dia tak boleh highlight tu kat mana? What's the highlighter? Tak ada. Ha? Fit and side punya. Tak ada fit and side pun. Comment. Okay. Itu pula ceritanya. See? Highlight. Okay. So even though here depreciation there's no Right, even though depreciation here there's no notes to the accounts, but you know that you have to do adjustment for depreciation. Why? Because depreciation is not allowed. It's not an allowable expenses. So when you do tax com for a company, alright, you have to look at like this. So when it comes, when you are dealing with income, right? So you want to decide whether income is an income under section 4A or is a non-business income, right? Okay, other income like this. So what do you mean by income under section 4A? Means that income which is related to the business of the company. So you talk about sales, alright, anything later you see that interest which is income that you receive because of the business activity, that is under section 4A income. Other income, it means that it could be income under section 4C, it could be 4D or 4F. Normally 4C, 4D lah. And also, you can also non-taxable income. What do you mean by non-taxable income? Income which is not taxable lah. Alright, but all this income may appear in your profit and loss account. Yeah, so when you look at the income later, so you see that okay, you have the rental. In the first, you have got rental is section 4D. Interest maybe is section 4C, but because there are the notes there, you have to look into the notes later for the details, the treatment of the income. Right, it means that all this income is already in the profit and loss. So you have to decide what kind of adjustment that you have to do, because you have to go back. Alright, tax com computation is like this, where the top one is only section 4A and anything with 4A only until your statutory income. At the bottom only I will include my 4C and 4D. But my non-taxable income, it should not be taxed. If it's there, I have to take it out. Right? This one you have to take it out also if it's in the profit and loss, because you want to compute 4A income only at the top from your tax com. 4C and 4D is at the bottom. So you take out from your profit, because here profit before tax here, alright, is inclusive of all income. So tax com you want to compute 4A first. So that's why you have to do adjustment. Anything which is 4C and 4D you take out first. So how you take out, for example, here in arriving to your profit before tax, you added your rental, interest and other income. So let's assume that these income are non-business income. So you have to take it out lah from the profit given here, because you will start your tax com with your profit before tax. Yeah. So when you I tak record kat sana. Record kat mana? But I tak click record. Kan sama recording.
Tapi tak ada mic kan media kat sana.
So tak dengar.
Tak. So dia orang dengar. Tak dengar.
So nak payah record ni.
So dia orang tak payah. Dia orang kena tengok video ni je.
Tapi sebenarnya boleh je buat kat sini.
Baik kan.
Tapi tak di internet. Okay, tak payah. Ni pandai. Ada pula. Ni kat mana? Aduh. Okay, I tak payah. I boleh je record kat sini. Tapi I masuk tak kat sini? Tu boleh pause.
Boleh pause.
Pause kejap.
Boleh.
I tengok. Tadi I dah jam belum?
Yang ni ke?
11 stop.
Okay, so you always have to start with your profit before tax 1 million. Okay, we always start with profit before tax, right? So when you start with profit before tax, in arriving to your adjusted income from 4A at the top, alright, you want to take out anything which is not 4A. In this case, it could be your 4C and 4D. So for example, in this case, it could be rental, it could be interest, it could be other income. But to decide better, alright, you have to look into the details in note 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah? Okay, so that is on the income. Non-taxable income here, alright, give me an example of non-taxable income. Income which is not taxed. Right? So normally we have gain on disposal. Right? Disposal, it could be disposal of your fixed assets, it could be disposal of your investment. Yeah? So this gain, alright, gain because your asset is not your business. Right? You use the asset as your fixed asset. Right? So upon disposal of the fixed asset, it's nothing to do with a business income. It's a capital income. So capital income, or here we call it as a capital income, is not taxable. You only tax on income, which is revenue. Yeah, revenue is keep on generating. It's a recurring income. But if your income is a one-off income, for example, disposal of your fixed asset, you don't do that every day. Not every month you dispose your fixed asset. Right? So in that case, it's a capital gain. So the capital gain is not taxable. So when it's not taxable, you also don't want to be taxed on that. So that's why you want to take it out from the profit, so that it will not be part of your adjusted income. Yeah? Right. So when talking about expenses, alright, all the expenses given is a long list of expenses, then you have to decide. The expenses here, alright, it could be expense which is deductible, expenses here, it could be deductible, it could be non-deductible, or it could be double deduction. Right? So what do you mean by deductible expense? Alright. Remember you said in profit before tax, in arriving to your profit before tax, you have deducted all these expenses. Right? But all these expenses, then you have to go back to the tax law. Is the expense allowable to be deducted? It means that can you deduct the expense in arriving to your adjusted income? Because some of the expenses is deductible, provided that it fulfills section 33 and section 34. Right, 33 means the expenses which is revenue in nature, right? Expenses which is incurred, outgoing, and then in the production of income. So if you're talking about the expenses is for business income, so the expenses might be also related to your business. So if the expenses is for your rental, then it's not for business. That's why you have to do adjustment. Because 33 is in the production of that income. Income could be for A, could be for C, could be for D. Right, so that's why you have to do adjustment. If the expenses is non-deductible expense, it means that, for example, depreciation is not allowed. Why is it not allowed, depreciation?
Because it's not really an expense.
It is an expense. It's not outgoing. Right, section 33 kata expense outgoing. So outgoing means that you have to pay for the expenditure. So as depreciation, you don't pay, it's just an allocation of costs. You don't pay for your depreciation, you don't pay for your provision accounts. Some of you have provision for your gratuity. It's an expense here. But it's an expense, that's why it's here. But it's not an outgoing. You don't have to pay for your provision. You only pay gratuity when it actually incurred. So before it incurred, alright, you provide for it. Similarly for your bad debts, alright, before it becomes bad, alright, you provide for doubtful debts. So that provision is not an outgoing, so that's why it's not allowed. Except, alright, some of the provision is allowed under section 34. For example, specific provision. So that's allowable. So when it's allowable, that means that, okay, you leave it as because deducted, allowable, so you don't have to do adjustment. That's why we need no adjustment. But if the expenses is not allowed, you have deducted, so you have to correct it lah. So you have to add back. Right, because the law say that this expense cannot be deducted, but you have deducted in arriving to your profit. So how to adjust? You add back. Right, because you have less. Add back. So any expenses which is not allowed, you have to add back. But if it's allowable, leave it. So that's why we don't do anything, no adjustment. But if you can claim double deduction, it means that you are allowed to claim one time here and also one more time in arriving to your adjusted income. So that's why it's called double deduction. Right, so these are the things that you have to do. Even though there are only 3 types of expenses here, but the list of expenses are very long. Alright, and then the treatment for the expense is also not the same for everything. Yeah. So let's look at how are you going to do. So you always start with the name of the company for your answer. Start with the name of the company, Purify Sendirian Berhad. Alright, tax computation for which YA? YA 2019. How do I close this?
Diorang yang dalam online tu tak dengar apa-apa, tak nampak skrin tu.
Sebab I tak boleh nak claim. Unless you all boleh masuk, then you all boleh record I. Betul tak? Susah kan? Tapi tak tahu nak buat.
Kalau tak, diorang kena dengar recording lagi.
Siap ni kan? Kalau ada rumah je lah, mana je. Okay. Alright, so let's look into alright, start with the name of the company, Taxcom for YA 2019. In this case, ini macam mana nak tutup ni? Tak tahu. Tak nak tarik. Confirm tarik, tak boleh nak tarik. Okay, always start with profit before tax. In this case, it's 1 million. What if here, rather than you have a profit before tax, you have loss? What we put in your Taxcom? Start with what? Kalau profit before tax 1 million, akan ada PBT 1 million. Start. What if I had loss?
Adjusted loss.
No, what is adjusted loss?
Oh.
Ha. Ini apa ni? Ini from your accounting punya computation. Kalau loss lah. So loss negative. Jangan letak nil lah. Because this you tak buat adjustment apa lagi. So kalau loss kat sini, so it has to be in bracket. Okay? So let's start with profit before tax 1 million, and then right, you start with the notes to the account. Oh no, tak payah. You boleh tengok kat atas dulu. Look at the top. Alright, is there anything that you have to adjust without the notes? Because everything else will go through the notes. So you don't have anything here, sales and revenue, cost of sales, and leave it as is. Because that is section 4A. So no adjustment. So that is a business income. But you have this one item, depreciation, which is no notes to that. You start with that. Right? Because if you leave it, maybe you leave it later. Forever. Okay? So you start with, then the first line will have depreciation of 55.5. So what we do with the 55.5? You add back. Why you add back? Because the expenditure is not allowed. You have deducted in arriving to the profit, tapi the expenditure is not allowed by law. Add back. Right? So add back. Then only you go to the notes to the accounts. Note number 1. Rental income. Allah nak buat macam mana ni? The company has provided the following notes and information to the accounts. Rental income is from several office spaces owned by the company. The company is providing extensive and comprehensive maintenance and support service to its rental properties. So remember that rental income is under section 4D, right? But the rental income can also be assessed under section 4A, provided that comprehensive, extensive and comprehensive maintenance support service is provided. Right? It means that under normal circumstances, whenever you have rental income, it's under section 40. So what's the difference between 4D means that 4D gross income from your rental minus allowable expenditure. So you get to your adjusted rental income under section 4D. But if you have losses, for example, your gross income is 100,000, but the maintenance or the capital expenditure, all that more than that. Alright, but you still have to deduct your allowable expense. It happens that you have loss. So if you have loss under section 4D, the loss is a permanent loss. What do you mean by permanent loss? It means that even though you have loss there, right, you cannot use that loss to be set off against your aggregate income. Because only loss from business 4A can be used to be set off against your aggregate income. Other losses, for example from your rental or from your royalty, those losses is a permanent loss. So you cannot use the losses to set off against other income. You cannot use the loss to carry forward to be set off against future income. Yeah. So that's the disadvantage of having income under 4C or 4D. So but rental income can be under section 4A provided that you have this extensive and comprehensive maintenance. So whenever you mention that, you know that that rental income is under section 4A. Right? So now bila you ada 4A, so you ada two businesses sana. Two businesses. One is from the company ni apa tadi? Manufacturing, is it? Manufacturing. Right, so that sales and cost of sales here is from the manufacturing business. But now you have another business which is rental income. So that is under section 4A also. So that is a business income too. So you're going to have business 1, adjusted income, statutory income, and you're going to have business 2 from rental. Right, so rental here you're going to compute with the adjusted income or is there any capital allowance that you can claim, right, from that. Okay. Alright, so now you know that rental income is going to be under section 4A. Alright, then what should we do? It's already included in PBT. Right, so what you do with the 168,000, you deduct. You take it out. Right, so you take it out and then you minus 168,000, but later you're going to have business 2 rental income 168,000. Okay? Clear? Note number 2. So when you do your exam later, right, you buat profit before tax, depreciation, right? And then you buat, this is note number 1 kan? You buat note number 1, rental income. What is your adjustment? And then you go to note number 2. So that is easier for you to refer because this one is one line only lah. But if you go into interest, then you have a few more lines. So but note number 2, right? So in your tax form, alright, you show it like this. I tak bawa jawapan. So that, alright, number 2, so you have your interest income. So interest income here, alright, it says that you have 2 lines here. 2 items are the interest income. So you have to show the 2 items in your answer. So because the first one is said that interest received from a customer who settled trading debt 4 months after it was due. So then you have to decide this interest received from a customer, should it be part of 4A or should it be part of 4C? Okay? There are 2 school of thoughts. Yeah? 4A, it means that because this one is related to your customer. Customer has to pay penalty or because of the amount settled his trading debt. So it's part of 4A. I would say it's 4A. So kalau dia 4A, it means that you don't have to do an adjustment for that part. So the first one is interest from customer. So this one is nil. Right? But the second one is interest on fixed deposit. So when it's a fixed deposit, it's clearly section 4C. So what if happen that the interest which is already there, now you know that it should be under 4C, not 4A. What will be your adjustment? You take it out, right? So interest on the fixed deposit, so you minus, how much is it? 46,800. So okay, careful, yeah? Here is 46,800, kat atas is 1 million. So you put everything in, tak ada 000 that one. Right? So if you look at careful students, sometimes I put there's no RM000 there. So it means that everything is in full. So if you start with 1,000,000, right? So your interest rate deposit here must be 46,800. Then buat 46.8 lah. Right? Because you got it wrong. Okay. So that's number 2, clear?
I don't know. So maknanya yang the first interest tu 8,400, we still like have to put it, but we do it as nil lah.
Nil, yes. It has to be there, but nil. Right? Okay. Another question? Okay. What if the second school of thought kata this one should be 4C? Because interest from that. Right? So assuming that you're going to do that school of thought, right? So you akan minus 8,400, then you're going to assess under 4C later. Similar to this one. Right? But because this one is clear, normally is ada section 4A lah, so no adjustment. Okay. Okay, the next one is other income. So look at the other income. Compensation received for goods damaged during shipping of raw materials from China. So if you look at, you understand that you know that, oh, this one is business related. Right? You receive the income of the compensation because of the shipping, goods damaged during the business. So all this is business related. It's nothing to do with your other income. Nothing to do with your rental income. Tak ada. So this would be income under business, so there's no adjustment. Similarly, you have note number 3, number 1 is compensation. You don't have to write everything. As long as you can show me, okay, this one is item for compensation. The second one item is sale of scrap. Right? Okay, number 1, there's nil, because that one is part of your business income. Sale of scrap is part of your manufacturing. Alright, so normally we assume that scrap tu part of the existing business manufacturing. We tak buka lah pula business satu sale of scrap tu. Right, it will be part of the business income. So again, it's a nil, no adjustment. Okay, now you go into expenses. Alright, so expenses you have to decide whether is it deductible or is it non-deductible, or you can claim double deduction. Okay, so when you have note number 4, see, you have a lot of things there. Right, so if you don't put note number 4, then your answer akan jadi too many things lah. Right, so if you can structure note number 4, all these items should be there. Alright, the entertainment allowance to director. So under entertainment, there's a special statement in the textbook that anything to do with entertainment allowance is 50% allowed. So what do you mean by 50% allowed? It means that 50% allowed, 50% not allowed. So if I allow 50%, I have to add back another 50%. So the adjustment would be add back 50% of that. So you add back 41,000. So you have either number 4, staff cost. Number 1, you have entertainment allowance for director, 41,000. Add back. And then you have childcare allowance to employees with basic salary below 5,000. So what do you mean by childcare allowance? Allowance given to employees. So it means that the company provide or pay allowance to their employees for childcare. Right, so you have to, okay, now you have to check under childcare, alright, what is given as the, is it allowable or you can claim double deduction too? How does it work? I tengah tak ingat macam mana itu. What's the treatment? Childcare allowance here? That's one of which. Cari malas pula. Double deduction if the company provides, the company incur expenditure to provide childcare facilities. Isn't it? That one double deduction. In this case, the company pays childcare allowance to the employee. I think it's just a normal deduction which is nil. I think, right? Betul tak? Huh? Dapat apa? Double deduction? Ada? Oh, tak ada. I don't think so. Ada limit ke? Tak ada. Itu yang limit tu tax one. Childcare allowance. Oh, dapat exemption. Ni untuk company. Right, so company pays their employee allowances for childcare. So whether the payment by the company to the employee is deductible or not. So in this case, I think that is deductible expenditure. Right, I don't have my question text. Alright, EPF. Alright, so EPF under expenses under section 34. 34 means that the deduction is specifically allowed under the law. So you don't have to say why, just the law says so, right? But the law says under EPM, we only allow deduction up to 19%. Anything above 19% is not allowed. So here it says that the deduction is 20% of remuneration. So it means that out of the 280,000, how much is not allowed? 1%. So kira lah what is 1% of the 280,000? Add back lah. Because from the 20,000, 19% is allowed, so you don't have to do adjustment. But the 1% you have to add back. How much you have to add back? 1% of 280,000? 2,800. Betul tak? Okay, expenses incurred to conduct SLIM latihan satu Malaysia ni. Alright, the details is in the textbook. I pun tak ingat sangat, but it's very detailed how much is allowable. I think that some of it you can claim double deduction, right? Some of it ada limit 5,000 ringgit per participant. So in this case, you send 5 employees, right? So the exemption given is 5,000 per employee. I think that I'm not sure kat mana, right? So but that one you have to look back in your textbook, right? And this 2019, so you have to go back 2019. How much is the allowances given, or how much is the deduction or the tax treatment for this SLIM punya program, right? So SLIM program, alright, just like this lah. Scheme Latihan Satu Malaysia, it says that alright, because of to cater for those unemployed graduates. So the government says that some companies, the big ones especially, alright, you can offer this scheme Latihan Satu Malaysia. So what happens is that you absorb those unemployed students, graduates, right? Employed, they are not employed lah. Take them as your management trainee. Alright, those unemployed graduates, so you have to apply lah. So you apply and then the company absorb you as a trainee, not as an employee, trainee. They panggil management trainee, and they will train you lah for several related to the company punya business lah. It could be HR, it could be in the operation, anything lah, management training. But you are not as an employee. But later, after, normally it's 2 years punya program. So after 2 years, then it's up to the company whether to absorb the graduates as their employee or not to absorb. If a good graduate, normally company akan absorb lah. But if not, then you don't have to pay them anything. Alright, during the program also, you are paid allowance. Right? You are paid allowance, and then you are given training expenses that you paid by the company, and then food, travel, accommodation allowance lagi they give you, right, to the graduates. Right? So, but what happens is that in order for government to encourage this program, they say that okay, for those companies that involved in SLIM, we call it this SLIM, SLIM Latihan Satu Malaysia, SLIM. Alright? If you pay training, for example, you can claim double deduction. So they pay for 48,000 training allowance. If the law says you can claim double deduction, you claim 96,000. What tax for? You incur 48, but you claim 96,000. How much you can save tax on them? Yeah. Similarly, training expenses, how much? So that's why I say I can't remember the detailed treatment for this thing lah. It's in the textbook, right? But I remember that some of it you can claim double deduction, and then other expenses too, company can claim up to 5,000 per student, alright, per participant. So in this case you have 5, so I know that the exemption given is 25,000 per student. Alright, so later look back in your textbook. But I can tell you lah, yang midterm tak tengok tu. Okay, bank charges include, okay, so bank charges is an expenditure. Alright, so whether you have to decide whether the bank charges here is related to your business or non-business. Bank charges for transfer of funds to supplier in China. So anything to do with supplier is your business lah. So no adjustment, it's allowed. Bank charges for transfer of funds to acquire a business. So bila you want to acquire a business, that is another business issue. That is a capital expenditure really. Right? You want to acquire another business in Vietnam, so that is a capital expenditure. It's not allowed. Unless you have to check under export promotion of export. Alright, some of these, alright, when you want to invest in another company, alright, all this promotion, some of the expenditure you can claim double deduction. But here, again, I don't have the textbook, I'm not sure what about the detail. So that's why, alright, tax, I allow you for open textbook. Because there's so many things that you have to remember. So I don't want you to remember everything, but you must know where to find the information. So katalah macam ni, you nak tengok dekat promotion export, you dah tahu dah in the textbook kat mana promotion or export. And you should know how to apply the laws. Right? So that's why I allow you for a open book. But if it's an open book, if you do not know where to get the information, if you are never read the textbook, useless lah the opportunity that I give you. Alright? Because some professional paper, for example, you're talking about MIPA, you're talking about CPA Australia, it's all open book. Sekarang ni ACCA, lagi closed book. Right? Because we believe that it's not about testing the memory, right? It's the understanding. And you have to understand the concept and how to apply the concept in your answer. Right? Again, if you don't have notes, then right, it's very difficult lah for you to refer to the notes because it's open book. You can refer to your notes, but you don't have the notes. You nak refer kat mana? Abang Rahman, where you want to refer to? It will take a lot of time, right? If you have the book, you can flip all the pages, but you only have 2 hours in the exam to do 4 questions. Can you flip everything? During my CPA Australia, what I did, because it's an open book, you only take one module, one paper lah for every exam. One module tu macam ni, it's an open book. Of course, how to help me, alright, I have an index, the table content, but very detailed index. I mentioned, okay, kalau chapter 1, dinding, all the items kat situ, I put page number. So bila benda tu, I refer kat my index, I terus buka my textbook. Otherwise, I nak selak benda tu. I don't have enough time. Right? You only have 2 hours, 3 hours. You not flip every page on the textbook. Right? So even though it's an open book, sometimes you say that some students it take longer time because you have it's open book. You tend to open all the everything you want to refer to textbook. You don't have to refer everything to the textbook. Only the one that you are not sure. But it's a skill lah. It's a skill. Charges paid to bank for credit card transaction made by customer that is related to your business. So no adjustment. So anything to do with your customer, anything to do with your supplier, anything to do with your employee, most of the time is allowable. Yeah. Entertainment comprise. Okay, entertainment is a special topic in your textbook. Alright, staff annual dinner. Right, anything to do with staff allowable. So you don't have to do any adjustment. Wedding gift to a major customer. Wedding gift. Alright, even though it's to customer, it's out of business punya transaction. Dealing with customer is one thing, it's a business. You're all pandai kan? Right. Dealing with customer is always allowable. But wedding gift to customer is out of the business punya transaction lah. Alright? So that is more of a personal, I would say it's out of business punya lah. Even though we say that it's a client, very big client, you kind of a project, that is out. Yeah. But if you pay customer that because of the faulty of your goods or because customer sue you for your products, all that is allowable. But this one is not allowed, right? Given with the hope that the customer will remain loyal to the business. So it's not in the production. Right, is for the potential, so it cannot. Sponsorship for customer annual dinner. So customer annual dinner, alright, in the form of cash, it could be, I don't know. It could be 50% of that, right? Top 3 lucky draw, no business logo on the price is 50%. Food and drinks for potential customer during product launching, that is allowed, that is specifically allowed under entertainment, right? For sales purpose. So this one, product launching, all this, you bagi promotion of your products, all that is allowed. So under entertainment, you have to go through very detailed in your textbook, which one is allowable. Right, so now I think that for entertainment, is either 50% allowed, so you have to adjust 50%, or is 100% allowed. So you have to see which one is 100%, which one is 50%. But for wedding gift too, I don't think it's allowable. Huh? You rasa wedding gift allowable ke tak?
Not allowed.
Add back terus kan?
100%.
Yang lain tu 50%. What about your annual dinner, client's annual dinner?
Not
Sponsorship?
allowed. Cash tu not allowed.
Cash not allowed?
Kat sini, cash contribution for customers annually.
Tak boleh?
100% not allowed.
I thought 50%.
Ada section.
Oh ya, tengok sikit. Mana lah? Lupa. Ni kat mana? Textbook?
Dia tu tax. LHDS punya.
Oh okay.
This one kan.
Wedding gift is not allowed. 100% not allowed. Okay. Yang tadi tu?
Ini kan.
For customers annual dinner. Not allowed. Not for you. Okay. Makes sense lah. Because annual dinner. Alright. Annual dinner here because it's annual dinner of the clients. Right, but this one, ni boleh tak? No business logo on the prices. Kalau ada logo memang 100% allowed. Tapi kalau tak ada logo, I'm not sure whether it's 50% atau. Okay, you can give without business logo, allow 50%. Yelah bila 50% allowed, 50% not allowed. Yeah. Alright, so cash is not allowed, but this okay, if you have logo, it's allowed. Alright, but if there's no logo, it's only allowed 50%, so you have to add back the balance 50%. Yeah, food and drinks, that one is allowable. Okay, which public ruling is that? Yeah.
Public ruling entertainment expenses number 4
Slash 2015.
2018.
15.
Oh, lama dah 15. Tak ada yang baru kan? So public ruling actually is very useful. Alright, it helps you to understand the topic better. But I cannot afford to refer to public ruling all the time. Right? But you should refer to public ruling as well because it gives you a lot of examples that you need to understand the topic better. Yeah. Because the purpose of the public ruling is as a guideline to not only taxpayer, to the tax professional as well as the tax authority. Okay. When talking about repair and maintenance, most likely you have to see whether is it a capital expenditure or a revenue expenditure. Right? If a capital expenditure is not allowed, but if a revenue is allowable. So example, maintenance of rental property. So rental property here, expenditure is related to your rental income. So it should be taken out from your, because all this is related to manufacturing, yeah? Profit before tax, so the 1 million is for your manufacturing business. So but this expenditure is incurred for your rental, which is business income number 2. So you're going to take out, add back 53,400, but then that amount you deduct against your business income kat sana. Right, so you akan ada business 2, ada rental. So you ada gross rental, how much? Tadi note number 1 minus, in this case the first one is your maintenance. Right, so you minus. Maintenance of PPE, so PPE is your asset, plant, equipment, all that. The maintenance of those PPE is a revenue in nature. Renovation is capital. You see? Maintenance is normal. You have to maintain the laptop, everything, walaupun tak maintain. Renovation is a capital. Alright, so renovation to convert a store in the factory into a childcare. Okay. The first one is that this one is a capital expenditure. So you have to add back. But then, right, you add back capital expenditure, but this one is convert a factory into a childcare center. When it's a childcare center, then it becomes industrial building. Industrial building? So industrial building, you boleh claim apa? Building allowance. So under capital allowance later, you have IBA for the childcare 10%. I'm not sure lah. Rate dia berapa pula? Is it 10 and 3 or 10 and 3? So claim lah. Alright, on that amount 373,600, 10% IA, 3% AA under industrial building. Alright, so even though it's an open book, alright, how are you going to know what's the treatment for that? Okay? So it's not direct lah, even though you can open your book, but if you do not know how to apply the knowledge, so susah juga. Yeah? The next one is purchase of microwave oven for staff pantry. So microwave oven, the cost is 300 ringgit. Right? So we call this as a small value asset, SVA. I can have a question. Alright, what is the treatment for small value asset? What is the treatment for small value asset? There are two treatments. One is that it's a small value asset, the cost is below, is it 2,000 now? Anything below 2,000, alright, you claim that as a revenue expenditure. And most of the time, this small value asset ni can last for more than 2 years. Right, so more than 2 years, so it should be free asset. But because the value is small, so we claim everything as a deductible expense. So that's why it's allowable. The other small value asset is that is on a replacement basis, right? So it fall under fixed asset, but you have to replace most of the time. So what happens is that, for example, those in the business of hotel, right? So they have all the bed sheet, all the mattresses, and all this is your asset actually. But because they have to replace most of the time, so the treatment is that the first time you incur is the initial expenditure, right? Or the restaurant with all the plates, the cookeries, all that. So they have to replace most of the time. So the first time you incur, you have to add back. It's initial expenditure. So capital, so you have to add back. But once you replace, it's allowable, right? You don't have to do any adjustment. So it's a replacement basis. So the difference is that, small value asset tadi bukan revenue expenditure ya. Small value asset, the microwave here is a capital. You have to add back 300, but you claim capital allowance 100%. Okay, you claim expenditure 100%. Capital allowance 100%. So what's the difference? You claim ke atas 100% as a revenue expenditure, you add back and then you claim at the bottom as a capital allowance. Which one is better for income tax purpose? As a taxpayer, which one is better? You want to claim 100% terus, or you want to add back and then claim at the bottom capital allowance? Add back, right? For tax planning, expenditure, we always want to claim as soon as possible. If you can claim 100% as a revenue expenditure, it's better than you add back, claim 100% at the bottom. If you claim as a revenue expenditure, then you claim everything lah, macam interest expenditure kan, you claim everything. So if you don't have enough income, then you are going to have losses, but a lot of expenditure that you claim. So loss, remember, loss is good for tax because loss can reduce your other income. So you pay less tax. Remember, you adjusted loss. But if you have to add back, alright, so you add back, you still claim 100% at the bottom. So the same value, you can claim 300. Kat atas you claim 300, or you add back 300, claim at the bottom 300. But the 300 capital allowance here is subject to how much is your adjusted income. Do you have enough adjusted income? Alright, and then to absorb your capital allowance. If you don't have enough adjusted income, you're not talking about 300 kat sini, you're talking about thousands, yeah? So if you don't have enough adjusted income, the CA, of course, you can carry forward. But for tax, we only want to claim everything as soon as possible. Rather than carry forward, I want to claim now. Yeah, so that's why given an option, you nak claim atau you nak add back and then claim at the bottom, so always claim first. So that's why, for example, section 34. Katalah donation. Donation, you can claim under section 34, means that it's allowable expenditure. Or you can claim at the bottom, you add back, then claim against your aggregate income under approved donation. You have to choose. Which one is better? Of course, claim first better. Right? So even the option is there, alright, the answer must be claim first. Right? Okay, for the leasing, alright, you should know how to compute your lease rental. It's a free marks actually, but you need to do some working. Show all your workings, yeah. I don't want you just simply type one figure and then you do not know where the figure comes from. Show your working. It could be on a separate page, right? All the workings are there. So for your lease charges, remember that motor vehicle, passenger car, there's a restriction. If it's a commercial motor vehicle, there's no restriction on the lease charges. But if a passenger motor vehicle, you have to restrict either 50,000 or 100,000 total lease rental from the first day until today. So assuming that in this case, the cost of the car is 340,000. So how much is the lease rental allowed? Total lease rental 50,000 only. So total 50 from the first day that you lease. So you start leasing in June 2018. So now you're talking about September, isn't it? Year end is September 30th. So you have to compute from June. So this one June, year end is September. So it's within 1 year lah. So you have to compute from June 2018 until September 2019. How much is the rental? 72,000. You nampak tak? You bayar 72,000 dah tahu dah. You can only allow 50,000. So means that you only allow 12,000. Salah, you allow 50,000. This one is allowable, means that the balance 22,000 you have to add back. Right? But if the cost is 150 and below, then you can claim up to 100,000. So that 70,000 is allowable. See the different treatment? If the cost of the motor vehicle is 150 and below, you can claim these charges up to 100,000. So if you can claim up to 100,000, this year you only have incurred 72,000, so this one is allowable. You don't have to do adjustment. But in this case, the cost is 340,000, so you only allow 50,000. 50,000, you paid 72,000 during the year, so mean that the balance 22,000 not allowed, because we only allow you 50,000. Alright, and then lease payment of land, see note below, and then compensation to landowner, also see note below. This one is related to the land. Alright, so whether you have to see whether the lease charges on the land and the compensation to landowner that you have to pay to the landowner is allowable. The company had a 50-year lease, another 30 years remaining period over a piece of land where the factory building is situated. During the year, the company then renegotiate the lease term with the landowner to make it more favorable to the company. After a series of negotiations, the landowner agreed to the revised term. The company managed to save 100,000 annually. To compensate the landowner, the company agreed to give a lump sum of 180,000 to the owner. So the issue here is that there are two payments here. One is 240,000 is on lease payment. The other one is 180,000. Yeah. So the lease payment in this case because land. So it's nothing to do with passenger car, right? Like the restriction. So the lease because the land is used for business purpose. So the lease rental on the land is allowable. But the compensation that you pay to the owner is not allowed, because that is the to compensate the landowner, alright, for because they agree to reduce their punya lease rental, for example. So that amount is a capital in nature. It's not allowed. So you have to add back 180,000. 240 is allowed. Okay, bad debts. You want clarification on bad debts? I said.
Yang lease tadi tu kita boleh compute capital allowance.
Cannot. Leasing is not. You are not the owner.
Okay.
That cannot claim. Right? Kalau capital allowance land mana boleh claim capital allowance?
Itu lah yang passenger car tadi tu. Passenger car tadi.
Oh, tak boleh. Lease rental you cannot claim capital allowance. Lease rental you only claim lease expenditure lah.
Loss, bilang balik.
On the lease rental.
No, like why don't we compute CA
On
lease
what?
Passenger car.
Passenger car. Are you the owner of the car? For you to claim capital allowance, you must be owner. You incurred using the business. Are you the owner? No. Lease rental, you are not the owner. You are the lessee. Right, the lessor. So you cannot claim allowance on lease rental. Right? You jangan fikir, okay, lease rental macam you belajar leasing. Right? Ada lease, operating lease dengan satu lagi apa? Financial lease. Isn't it? Tu tak sama. Kalau ni kita cakap pasal tax. The treatment is lease rental. You are not the owner, you cannot claim capital allowance. But it's good actually because kalau capital allowance you kena claim 20%, 20%, 4 years. But lease rental, everything you incur, you claim terus, which is better, right? And whether later when you do your tax planning, you have to decide if you want to buy an asset. Should you go for lease or should you go buy the asset? Kalau nak buy asset, buy house. You want to buy cash or loan, or you want to hire purchase, all these you have to do computation. Because ada tax implication. Which one is better for the company? That one kita akan belajar later. Okay, for bad debts, alright, it's easier. Very easy. It's a bonus whenever you have bad debt provisioning. So anything general, not allowed. But which is the amount that is not allowed? There are two ways for you to do. Whether the first one you compare the opening balance and the closing balance. Number one, compare the opening balance and the closing balance. In this case, is there an increase or decrease? There's an increase in the provision made during the year. Is general provision allowed? Not allowed. So kalau ada increase in provision, add back the increase. But kalau might decrease, then you minus lah. That is the first method. The second method, look at the changes during the year. During the year, alright, you provide training that you write off 7,009 and then allowance provided for the year. Allowance here is the provision, the allowance lah. Alright, so you take note of this. What is the net changes here? 13.8 minus 7.9. Berapa? 5,900. Okay, 5,900 plus or minus? Plus kan? So add back lah 5,900. The first method, how much you add back? Berapa? Sama tak? Sama lah. Cuma method je dua. Either you want to use the first one or the second one. You get the same answer. Itu pun tak betul juga. Dah, general. So bila dapat general, bestnya. Because you have general, senang dapat mark dah. Dua tick sangat situ. But specific is allowable. Why under section 34 specific is allowable? So kalau allowable, you don't have to do anything lah, name je. Whether it's a specific made during the year ke, whatever ke, no need. Because it's allowable, no adjustment. Information banyak-banyak, dua tick je. Okay. Professional fees. Alright, professional fees to collect trade. Again, you have to look out whether is it for business purpose or is it for capital purpose. Right, anything to do with capital purchase of your shares ke, anything to do with purchase of your asset, all these are capital expenditure, not allowed lah. So, but then legal fees to collect trade debts, that is business, revenue in nature, allowable. Agent fee 60% for tax planning, the balance is for tax filing. Okay, careful ya. Tax fee. What's the rule for tax fee? How much can you claim? Tak ada ke textbook? Is it 10,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000? 2019. Tak ada dalam advance tax. Donation tax. Okay. Let's assume you only allow 10,000 tax fee. But tax fee here, there are two types. One is what we call compliance, and the other one is non-compliance. Not non-compliance, advisory. Right? So later, if alright, you happen to be working at the tax department, right? So dia memang ada level 2 department. So one is the compliance and the other one is the advisory. So if you're attached with the compliance, normally what you do is the compliance of the company lah. submission of tax return, tax estimate, handle the tax matters of the company, which is statutory requirement. So all that you handle, alright? But talking about advisory, normally you have more experience, you are very good with your compliance, then only you can go for advisory. Means that you advise your client what is the best tax planning, for example. So all that is on advisory. So normally manager level and above lah dekat advisory. Right? Sometimes kalau fresh graduate unlikely to be under advisory, because you must understand your compliance, then only you can advise, right? Okay. So for compliance, alright, advisory, because this one is not statutory requirement, so advisory is not allowed. So if you pay for tax planning, for example, in this case, for tax planning is 60%. The balance is for tax filing. Tax filing is part of compliance lah. Yeah. So compliance here also assuming that you only allow restricted or maximum of 10,000. Let's assume 10,000. I'm not sure what is the figure. 5,000 or 10,000. Right, so in this case, tax fee, how much is the tax fee? 135,000. But 60% is for advisory. How much is 60%? 81,000. So you know that 81,000 you have to add back. Why? Advisory or tax planning is not allowed. So you have to add back 81,000. But on the compliance part, how much is the 40%? 54,000. Out of from 54,000, if we say that we only allow you 10,000, so 44 you have to add back. Because you incurred 54,000, but the law only allows you 10,000 for tax fee, so the difference you have to add back. Okay. So and then so clear, 44,000 add back on the compliance or tax filing. The advisory have to add back 81,000. So there are two lah kat sini. You have to show me both. Expenses to obtain halal certification from JAKIM. This one you can claim double deduction. How do I know you can claim double deduction? Memang ada list lah double deduction. Dua other things that you can claim. Alright. So under section 34 ada juga you can have halal certification. Under section 34 means that it's allowable. So you can claim it. Because when you talk about obtain halal certification, it's a capital expenditure actually. Right? You have to incur one time and then so it's capital. But section 34 says it's allowed for halal certification, for SIRIM, for quality assurance, everything. But the other rule says that you can claim double deduction. So which one you want to claim? Single deduction or double deduction? Double lah. So kalau you claim single salah lah. Boleh, but then rugi lah. Right? Company tak boleh nak claim double deduction. Right? So the answer should be double deduction. Cost of acquisition of proprietary rights. This one capital in nature. But then the law now allows you to apportion that cost over 5 years period. But you boleh claim 20% over 5 years period. So mean that if the cost is 250,000, means that for current year you can claim 20% of that. So the balance you add back lah. So next year you claim another 20%. Understood?
I don't. How do you do 20%?
Dalam textbook. So kena refer text. That's why business expenses, alright, so you start do the notes lah on your business expenses. There are too many things there. So you don't have notes, right? You have to flip your textbook lah. Macam I dulu, I ada juga highlight dah siap-siap. Tapi every year I tukar textbook. Takkan every year I nak highlight. So I have to flip lah buku new textbook. Oh, I janji nak bawa buku textbook kat siapa? Advanced Tax. Siapa nak Advanced Tax? I ada buku lama sikit, buku 2020, 2019. Okay. Alright, so that is on the proprietary rights. Insurance refer to fire insurance on the office space rented out. Alright. So this insurance refers to which business income? Rental. So means that you have to add back dulu insurance tu, and then you claim against your rental income.
donation to, meaning allowable 20%, so the rest we add back, right?
Yes.
So 80%.
Okay, about 80%. Alright, and then office space is related to your rental income, so you add back and then you claim against your rental income. Zakat and donation, okay. Student, I do not know. Alright, some question, you don't have the zakat payment. Not mention about zakat and then they claim the zakat 2.5%. It's not like that. Only if you incur that you can claim. And the amount you can claim for donation, in this case, donation to government Tabung Harapan Malaysia, there's no limit. You can claim against your aggregate income. But business zakat, you have to claim, you can claim but restricted to 2.5% of your aggregate income. So you have to check lah. What is your aggregate income? Then you have to show me 2.5% of that you claim your zakat. So it doesn't matter whether your aggregate income is correct or wrong, it doesn't matter. But you have to show me, okay, zakat 2.5% of that amount. See? Alright, forex. Alright, very interesting.
Tapi kena add back dulu, right?
You add back first and then claim at the bottom. Sorry. Add back first, claim at the bottom. You add back your donation, you add back your zakat. And then claim against your aggregate income. Okay, forex. One, whether dia realize, buat terus. Dia tengok unrealized or realized. Unrealized, nampak dia unrealized, not allowed. But realized, alright, if it's a revenue, it's allowable, but if a capital, not allowed. So the only thing forex allowed is realized revenue in nature. Yang lain semua you add back. But again, add back kalau loss. Kalau gain, if it's not allowed, you minus lah. Okay. If it's not allowed, it's a loss, means that it's an expenditure. So that's why you add back. But if it's a gain and it's not allowed, gain income. So bila you income, you add kan? So that's why you minus. So forex realize from purchase of machine. Realize, but then capital not allowed. So you add back. Do you get me?
No.
Lagi sekali. I tulis belah sini. Forex, you tengok. When you nampak forex, unrealized or realized. So nampak dia term unrealized, not allowed. Right? So you can ada loss on forex or gain on forex. Kalau loss in expenditure, so bila not allowed, you add back lah. But kalau gain, you minus. Why you add back? But loss is an expenditure, you minus in arriving to profit. So kalau it's not allowed, you add back lah. But kalau it's a gain, you plus in arriving to your profit. So if it's not allowed, you minus lah. Okay. But kalau realize, then you have to look whether is it revenue or capital. Capital not allowed, revenue is allowed. So you see that the only forex allowed is those that realize revenue in nature. So if you see anything to do with, even though it's realized, in this case the first one is realized, but purchase of machine. Machine is a capital. So because of that, it's not allowed. So it's a gain or loss? Loss. So you add back. How much you add back? 41,700. The second one, unrealized for purchase of raw materials. Raw materials is the revenue. Tapi sebab ada unrealized. Whenever you see unrealized, tak kisahlah whether revenue or capital is not allowed. Right? So in this case, it's a gain. Minus. Right? Other information, you have all the asset that you have to compute the capital allowance. Alright, so capital allowance 2001 means that factory building you only claim annual allowance. Office building, C note number 1, office building, this one is related to your business one. So you can claim capital allowance on the office building. Alright, but that one means that you only claim annual allowance, 3%. Because it was purchased in 2011. Furniture in office building, again for the second business, Machine, alright, not mentioned, so means that it's for business. 2016 means that you're going to claim capital allowance, annual allowance of 600,000. Yeah, 40%. Rental. So what happened is that in your tax form, 5 minit lagi. What you're going to have is that you will start with profit before tax plus minus, remember just now we have non-business income. Non-business income, this one is your interest. Interest je kan, so far. This one just a recap. And then you minus your rental income. Right, you minus, and then this one akan jadi section 4A number 2. So section 4A at the bottom. So you akan buat PPT all this adjustment, and then you plus your non-allowable expense minus your double deduction. The JAKIM just now, certification. Right, so you go through all the expenditure, show me line by line. Ada notes to the accounts, note number berapa. And then you can actually have, alright, if you are writing, because from one note to another note, you leave one space. So that easier for me to see. You were clear, nak nampak benda tu. Yeah? And then, so once you have this, you have your adjusted income minus your capital allowance. There's no disposal of asset during this, so there's no balancing charge. Capital allowance, I'm not sure whether brought forward figure is given. It's not, I think. So you just current year, right? And then you compute your SI. So once you have your SI, then you come for your 4A from your rental. Right, so gross rental minus allowable expenditure. So there are two items which is allowed just now. The first one I think is allowed on the maintenance. The second one is on the fire. Isn't it? Alright. Yeah, insurance, fire insurance and burglary insurance. Right, the insurance against your rental income. So once you have here gross minus allowable expenditure, you have adjusted income from rental. Then only you minus capital allowance on these two items. Right? These two items, office building and furniture in the office building. Alright, so then you have your statutory income from your rental and statutory income from manufacturing and rental dapat aggregate statutory income. Is there any loss brought forward? No, right? Kalau I bagi information, bagi. Loss brought forward not given. Then you have other income. So you have the interest just now. There's no dividend, no other income. So aggregate income minus loss. Current year business loss, no, you have profit, right? And then minus your donation. What else? Zakat. Then you come to your charge. Okay. Which part do you think that corporate taxing is difficult? Too many things to remember. Okay, how to self that? Notes. You have 3 days to do that. Apa lagi?
Capital allowance, building allowance.
Apa susah nak isu? IAA je kot.
Kalau macam higher purchase.
Ha?
Higher purchase.
Higher purchase? Apa yang susahnya?
Confused.
Tak cukup. Higher purchase, sebab bila you buat the table, okay, you kena buat macam ni tau. Kalau higher purchase, alright, you have to know what is the cost minus deposit, right? So let's say 100, deposit 20,000. So 80,000 balance kan? 80,000 ni you just divide by number of years, number of installment. So number of installment, then you get something here. So based on this, then alright, based on katalah this one divide by 40. So dia dapat apa? 2,000. Is it? Good. 2,000 per installment. So for first year, you ada bayar deposit plus your installment. Installment tu tengoklah for that year how many installment that you pay. So this total akan jadi your QE for your year 1. So then you have this, then you draw lah. So you draw your year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. So IA and AA based on the QE in year 1. Right? When it comes to year 2, alright, IA and AA based on QE in year 2. What is the QE for year 2? Is only the installment times by 12. Right? And year 3 could be less because, okay lah, this one 12 kan. So kalau you buat 24, then you kena tengok number of installment that you pay during the year. That will be your QE. So that one you start dengan year 2 lah. Tak adalah year 2 kat sini. So you start IA, AA, AA, AA. The first one, IA, AA. Plug je lah figure. Kat mana yang susah? Dispose pula. Higher purchase ni you dispose. Whenever you dispose, right, assuming that you dispose in year 4, there's no allowances claim in year 4 lah. So what is your RE here? RE here ingat QE ada QE1, QE2. QE1, QE2 total minus all these claims lah. Dapatlah RE. Lepas tu compare your disposal value.
Macam bila ada
Restriction.
dah habis QE1, kena ambil balance dekat untuk masukkan QE2.
Balance apa? Untuk apa? RE ke apa?
Restriction. Kalau ada restriction.
Okay, kata ada restriction. Let's say a restriction is 100,000, right? So firstly you claim 80,000, sini you claim 20,000. So mana total QE is 100,000 juga. So minus all the claims that you make here, so you akan dapat RE. The disposal value you akan restrict. So katalah cost is 240,000. Sorry, 140,000. But you can only claim 100,000. Kan? Restriction 100,000. So your disposal value, how much you can sell? Let's say you can sell for 80,000. This is the disposal value. But value is 100, you can claim 100, but total value is 140. So you restrict your disposal value. Sebab if you restrict your QE, your disposal value must be based on the 100,000 value lah, not 140,000 value. It's not fair lah because the market value that you sell is based on 140. The actual motor vehicle tu. But for taxcom, you only allow you to claim 100,000. So for computation of the disposal value must be based on the 100,000. So how you base on that? 100 over 140 lah. 100 is the restriction value, 140 is the actual cost. That's how you restrict.
Kalau tak jual, kita tak boleh claim the next.
Boleh? Right. Kalau katalah, depends lah, kalau 20%, 1, 2, 3, 4. Itu je boleh claim. For the first QE. For the second QE, you akan claim year 5. Sebab you start dengan year 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Untuk year 3, you akan start dekat year 3, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6.
Tapi year 3 dah tak ada QE.
Tak apa, untuk katalah year 1, alright, you akan claim up to year 4 kan? Year 5 you tak boleh claim dah. So kat sini kosong, tapi you ada claim untuk QE2, QE3 ada lagi. So for year 5, you akan ambil total CA tu kat sini. Nampak apa kat sini?
Tapi year 3 QE tak ada yang baru kan sebab dia dah.
Tak ada, sebab you akan pakai QE tu, you decide dah awal-awal dah. So and then you dah bagi IAAA untuk for that year. So you tak affect lagi dah. So bila kira QE for year 3, you akan start dengan year 3 and onwards. So dia tak kacau. Kalau dalam textbook, dia kacau. Sebab dia buat method lain. Method ni dah senang. You jangan tengok textbook dah tu. I purchase, tengok I. I pun confused tengok dalam textbook. You buat macam ni, try buat macam ni. Okay? So you must decide what is your QE for year 1, QE for year 2, then pakai IAA. No problem.
Yang kata sikit itu yang decide
If there is a restriction, then you have to decide lah how much is the QE for that year. Because katalah you dah claim sini 80, even the sini you incurred 40,000, you can claim 20 only. So the QE is 20, so the IAAA based on 20.
3 dah tak ada.
Ah?
Year 3 dah tak ada.
Tak adalah sebab walaupun you still pay, but you are not able to claim anymore. Kau dah transfer.
Tak tahu berapa QE dia.
Berapa QE nak letak? Okay, kalau high purchase, first year you punya deposit plus your installment payment made during the year. Second year is all your installment payment made during the year. Year 3 pun all installment payment. But if there is a restriction, then you have to restrict lah. First year dah claim berapa, second year claim berapa. So you can only claim what is available.
Restriction tu tidak sampai yang boleh lah.
Yeah. So even though year 3 dah cukup 100,000, year 4 you tak boleh claim anymore lah. Even though you still paying.
Ya, kalau Q1 tu kita claim 20, mesti kita 80.
Boleh? Boleh. Katalah year 1 sebab deposit, lepas tu bayar untuk 1 bulan Disember je. Lepas tu second year you bayar untuk 2 bulan, 12 bulan. So QE dia first year is always deposit plus installment. Second year only installment. Tapi nak kira deposit installment ni careful lah. Jangan ambil interest, you only ambil cost minus deposit. Dah itu je. Whatever you have here, divide by number. Tak kira lah interest ke apa, don't care. Cost minus deposit, balance divide by number. So you get the capital portion of your installment. Itu je you nak guna for you to complete your qualifying expenditure. Okay. Alright. So I think that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. And okay, recording dah boleh stop dah kan?
Ada. Korang pun boleh isi assignment Tuto form.
Why not? Alright.